Imagine waking up to an alert on your phone. The government has sent out a warning that nuclear missiles have been launched by a rogue state and they could hit at any moment. You're unsure if this is a hoax, so you turn on the TV to check anyway. Sure enough, every news channel is reporting that an unknown number of nuclear ICBMs have been fired and they're on their way to cities around the world. You frantically check Twitter, news sites, and your messages as your brain tries to process what is happening. Suddenly, the power goes out, and your phone blinks off. At that moment, as fear and panic grip you, what do you do? While the chances of a nuclear war breaking out tomorrow are still significantly lower than they were back in the late 1980s when there were 5 times more nukes around than there are today, or even 60 years ago, like in 1962 when the world came to the brink of a nuclear catastrophe during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there is still a possibility of something going horribly wrong. It is estimated that there are around 13,000 nukes either currently deployed or stored away somewhere. Only a handful of countries possess nuclear weapons, including China, France, the UK, India, and Pakistan. 90% of all nukes belong to the USA and Russia, with North Korea known to also have developed and tested their own bombs, and Israel presumed to have at least one nuclear device. While most of these countries' nuclear weapons are regulated, some, like North Korea, don't like to stick to the rules, and researchers believe that if a nuclear war was to start, rogue states or even a terrorist organization would be to blame. While there are thousands of active nuclear missiles primed and ready for launch, it'll only take 1 or 2 to set things off. Now, nukes come in a variety of strengths, or yields. Bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, for example, had yields of around 20 kilotons each, while Russia's mother of all nukes, the Tsar Bomba, released over 58 megatons of energy. But while the size of a nuclear explosion can have a devastating effect on the ground below, it's the number and potential global impact of multiple blasts that is cause for concern. Most nuclear-armed nations have extensive collections of light, low-yield weapons in their arsenals. This allows them to strike their targets more precisely without wiping out a vast area. The weapons are often cheaper and are usually easier to launch. Lower-yield bombs also require smaller, harder-to-track missile or aircraft delivery systems, making them more popular than the larger bombs. The problem here, however, is that in the event of nuclear war breaking out, countries are also likely to use many of these smaller bombs, and as the number of these low-yield explosives go off, they set fire to everything, and we mean everything. While most people think that the radiation and fallout are the problems, in fact, it's the smoke from tens of millions of fires that will cause a global-scale catastrophe. This is because thermonuclear warheads are exactly that, thermal explosives that create incredible amounts of heat when they detonate. In fact, a small 10-kiloton bomb would set fire to almost every single building in Lower Manhattan, from Central Park to the southern tip of the island. A 20-kiloton explosion over Singapore would completely destroy a third of the city while creating a firestorm that could potentially burn for days, if not weeks. And a 50-kiloton blast over London would result in everything within 9 square kilometers catching fire. That's a lot of fire, and if this were the case across even 100 cities around the world, a lot of smoke too. Despite the millions of direct casualties these blasts would cause, they'd only represent a fraction of the people killed when compared to the longer-term chaos caused by a nuclear war. While radioactive fallout would eventually start to take a toll, as clouds of toxic ash drift over large swaths of territory, killing and irradiating most living things below it, more terrifying is the effect that the sudden increase in CO2 and soot in our atmosphere would have on the world. Ever heard the term nuclear winter? Well, that's pretty much precisely what humankind would face. Potentially decades of darkness and cold, wiping out most life as we know it. So, how would a nuclear war really begin? Well, since we haven't experienced one yet, except where the USA used nukes in 1945 to end World War II, we can only guess how this would unfold. So what would happen if somebody did hit the big red button, setting off a nuclear war? Let's take a look. A diplomatic misunderstanding or rogue military unit results in a first strike being launched by country A against country B. Before the first bomb even hits, the opposing nation detects the launch and fires some of their own tactical nukes, targeting their enemy's remaining nuclear installations. As country A's satellites pick up the multiple launches, they launch the remainder of their own nuclear arsenal before country B's nukes can destroy it. But this showering of bombs isn't targeted at country B's installations. They're aimed at the nation's biggest cities. As the nukes pass one another in the stratosphere, country B, realizing that their populations are about to be decimated, changes their missiles targets to aim towards country A's biggest cities. In this nuclear conflict scenario, let's assume the two opposing countries are using 50 Hiroshima-sized nuclear bombs about 15 kilotons each. In this situation, it is estimated that as much as 5 million tons of ash and soot would be released into the atmosphere as a result of the countless fires caused and dust thrown up into the air from the superheated blasts themselves. As the smoke from billions of burning buildings, bodies, and even trees covers the planet, less and less sunlight would make it to the surface, slowly but surely changing the weather patterns and reducing the amount of light and heat needed by plants and animals to survive. This would lead to significant cooling of at least several degrees over large areas of the northern hemisphere, including many of the food crop and grain-growing regions. Researchers estimate that this cooling could last for, at the very least, 10 years. It would take less than a year for crops to die off, 2 for food to run out, and only months for economies to collapse, mass migrations of people to occur, and, in all likelihood, for secondary wars to break out as a result of competition for resources. While these nightmare events are unlikely to happen in the short term, as long as countries have nukes pointed at one another, there is always the chance that humanity could one day pull the trigger. Let's hope that our doomsday scenario never comes to pass. Thanks for watching, and remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and hit the notification icon for more great videos like this one. Until next time, goodbye for now.